YouTube, in this video, I'm going to be ranking every Western Conference team's bench for the upcoming 2025 NBA season. We're going to kind of dive into the depth of each team and, rank them worst to best in this video. This is actually part 3 of a 4-part series here on the channel, where in part 1, we ranked every Western Conference team starting 5 for the upcoming season. In part 2, we ranked every Eastern Conference team starting 5. This obviously being part 3, and as you can imagine, part 4 will be ranking every Eastern Conference team's bench. The link to those videos will be down in the description. Part 1 and part 2, and then part 4 will be coming very shortly on the channel, so make sure you guys do subscribe if you want to see the end to this series. Now, just a couple disclaimers before we get into the video. I want to kind of go over some things to add some context to these rankings here. The first thing is the criteria. What exactly will be the factors for ranking these teams? And a few things I came up with was, obviously, if you're ranking benches, the depth at each position is super important. I think one of the more important things to have is a quality backup point guard and a quality backup 5, and I would add a quality backup wing. So if you have those 3 positions, you're probably going to be pretty high on this list. That's not the only criteria, because it's not just about depth at each position. It's also not just about how many good players you have on your bench. There could be a team where they have like 5 quality guards off the bench, but they have no depth in the front court. So there is a lopsidedness to this for some teams, and I have to kind of rank that fairly for each team. And so those 2 things will factor in. The last thing I'll mention, let's say a team has like a 6-man of the year candidate, and they're one of the best bench players in the league, but they don't necessarily have, a great backup point guard or backup 5. There are different ways a bench can be good, and one of those ways obviously is having, one of the best bench players in the league. So it can't just be about depth at each position. How good like the best player on your bench is certainly a factor in this video. It has to be. Just a couple more things. Players that are injured to start the season, I will be including them in this video if, and this is a big if they're coming back for some point for the 2025 season. So a good example is the Grizzlies have 2 players that are exceptional bench players, G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams Jr., who are both injured to start the season, but they are expected to return in the 2025 season, and so I will be including them for the Grizzlies rankings. Now, another example is like Deron Holmes II for the Denver Nuggets, the backup center, the rookie they drafted, is out for the entire season with an Achilles injury, so I won't be including him for the Denver Nuggets ranking. So hopefully you guys understand all of this stuff. I hope I did okay explaining it. Sorry for the long intro. Without further ado, let's get right into the 2025 rankings for every NBA Western Conference team's bench. Let's go, folks. I had to mention all that context. Without further ado, let's get right into the 15th ranked team in the Western Conference. And I'm going to have the Portland Trail Blazers ranking 15 for Western Conference benches. And they actually might have the deepest center depth in the entire NBA period. One of the problems is they're so young. All these players are very young. They're still developing. I don't know that I trust all of them as a rotation player for a competitive basketball team. And so while they are, just good players on paper, I'll read you some of their notables here. At guard, we have Shaedon Sharpe, who is going to be a breakout candidate this season. Unfortunately is injured to start the season, but will be returning. You have other guys like Matisse Thybulle, Jabari Walker, Toumani Camara, who all 3 of those guys I really like. And then the center depth, as I mentioned, Donovan Clingan, the lottery pick this season for the Trailblazers, Robert Williams III, and Duop Reith. Like, these are all 3 really good centers as far as bench depth goes. And so you could maybe say the Blazers bench will outperform this 15th ranking here. But again, Robert Williams III probably going to be traded by the deadline. There's just a lot of young pieces on this bench. I just have to put them at 15, particularly Shaedon Sharpe, though. He is a standout. He makes this bench a ton better. I think when he does come back, he will not be starting as far as the lineups I've seen for the Blazers. It looks to be Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, Denny Avdia, Jeremy Grant, and DeAndre Ayton. That could change again halfway through the season. We just don't know. But as far as 15 right now, I have the Portland Trail Blazers. For the number 14 ranking, I am going to have another rebuilding team, and these 2 teams, keep getting the brunt of these rankings here, and I do apologize to the fan bases. Again, this is not a knock on the franchise. I think they're doing excellent jobs, both of these teams, at rebuilding. But for the number 14 team, I have the Utah Jazz. And one of the things was actually really hard for me to rank with the Utah Jazz was they do have 2 exceptional talents off the bench. Like, either of these 2 guys could be 6 men on winning basketball teams. You could even make a case that could be starters on good teams. And those 2 players, of course, being Jordan Clarkson and John Collins. Now, these are 2 really good players. It's just hard for me to say that a team that, is expected to win, maybe less than 30 games this season is going to have a top 10 bench. I could say say that this is a very talented bench, which it is. Again, some more notable players here: Isaiah Collier, rookie guard out of USC; Johnny Juzang, who I like a lot as a shooter; Cody Williams or Taylor Hendricks. One of those guys will not be starting. And so, Bryce Sensabaugh, Drew Eubanks, Kyle Filipowski, these are a lot of good players. Some of them are just really young and unproven. While you do have the pop of Jordan Clarkson and John Collins, again, I do think there's a realistic scenario where not everyone on this bench is going to see the Jazz roster in 2026 as far as trades go. Like, there are going to be some trades this season, in my opinion, for the Jazz, and some of those guys could be involved. Now, I could see a case where you say just having Jordan Clarkson and John Collins makes the Jazz bench, somewhere around top 10, because, one of the things going through this list I found was there's so many talented benches in the Western Conference. I don't know. I think it's a good bench. It's just a little too young, and I think there's going to be a ton of fluctuation with this lineup. Like, I don't know that all of those guys are going to get consistent minutes. It just can't be possible. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy for ranking them 14th. This is actually a good bench, but, let me know down in the comments. For the number 13 ranking, I'm going to have the Denver Nuggets. And one of the things that stands out about the Nuggets is just how much investment they put into their starting five, because when you look at this bench, it's just not that deep. They're going to run a short rotation. Russell Westbrook and Julian Strother, the guards, are going to be pretty good, I guess. Peyton Watson, Vladko Konchar, Zeke Naji, Hunter Tyson, that's an okay forward group. You might like to see a little bit more solidified rotation guys. I think, one of those guys is going to have to step up and really earn a role on this team. As far as the center depth, I like Dario Saric. DeAndre Jordan is, still in the league. I can say that. But Dario Saric, I think, is an okay backup five for what the Nuggets like to do offensively. Defensively, I just don't know that it's a great fit. But either way, I just don't think this is a very good bench. That just, again, it just proves how good the Nuggets starting five is when you consider everyone, and I mean everyone, is going to have them in their top 4 seeds for the Western Conference this season. And that's with one of the worst benches in the Western Conference. And so that just proves how great their starting five is and how great Nikola Jokic is. But this group is very subpar for me personally. It's just not even close to top 10 in my opinion. Now, coming in at number 12, I'm going to have the San Antonio Spurs. And again, this is another team with two excellent players. We're talking about Keldon Johnson and Stephon Castle in particular. These two guys are going to have a heavy impact on the Spurs this season. They're going to get a ton of minutes. And so that pushes them above teams like the Jazz, the Nuggets, and the Blazers for me personally. These two guys are exceptional basketball players. And then you have Trey Jones at the backup point guard. Malachi Branham could see some minutes. I like his game a little bit. Julian Champagnie is a really good shooter. And then at the center position, you're pretty good. I mean, the one thing I don't like about this bench is the uncertainty at center. There are a lot of people that do not like Zach Collins in San Antonio. I'm just not sure he's a, very winning type of player. He has good production. He always puts up good production. I think he's a good basketball player. And I think he's a very competent backup five talent-wise. But I know Spurs fans know what I'm talking about. I'm just not sure Zach Collins is the most reliable backup five, and reliability as a backup five is probably the most important thing. And Charles Bassey is a guy I like. Maybe you see him get some more minutes this season. I don't know. I like the Spurs bench. I think it's pretty good. But I'm telling you, as we get farther in this list, you're going to see why this team can't be in the top 10. I know some of these rankings look crazy so far because I haven't laid out the full picture yet, but I'm telling you later on, it'll all make sense. I promise. Coming in at number 11, this is a team with one of the best 6 men in the league, and that kind of elevates them. But there are some holes in the bench of this team. That is the Sacramento Kings. And this team has a 6-man of the year candidate, Malik Monk, who I think is such a great, complimentary guard to this team. He is so good offensively, and I just love his game. And then, either Keon Ellis or Kevin Huerter are going to be also coming up the bench at guard. Either one of those guys is a really good bench player for the guard position. You also have Jordan McLaughlin and Devin Carter, who, I hope can return to the floor this season, but Jordan McLaughlin, a good steady backup point guard. But the problem with this team, in my opinion, as far as their bench goes, this is a big hole in this team, is their wing depth. And while you do have Malik Monk and, Kevin Huerter or Keon Ellis, whoever it's going to be, that raises them above some of these other teams. These are awesome players, starter or bench, but the wing depth is very lackluster in my opinion. And this is a team that is going to be starting DeMar DeRozan at the wing and, either Keon Ellis or Kevin Huerter. And then basically your only other option is going to be Jalen McDaniels. And I like Jalen McDaniels for what he is. He's a good athlete. He's a really long defender. He is a decently high upside wing defender in my opinion. And if he can hit a consistent 3-ball, which he's kind of struggled to do so far consistently on an NBA team in his career, he will be a very good 3-and-D wing off the bench. Other than that though, it's just nobody else. It's really just nobody else. And so I like Trey Lyles at the backup 4, probably one of the better backup 4s in the league. And at the center position is also kind of a concern for me. I think Alex Len is fine. I just don't think he stands out as far as backup 5s go. I'm not trying to be too negative here because obviously they do have some of the most talent as far as 6-man goes, and Malik Monk, that really elevates them above those other teams for me, but there just are, too many holes to look over with this Kings bench unit, and particularly on the wing. But again, this is a good ranking when you consider the 14th ranked team has Jordan Clarkson and John Collins. The Spurs have Keldon Johnson and Stephon Castle, who I think Stephon Castle might be one of the runner-ups for Rookie of the Year. And so really good pop off the bench offensively. I just don't love some of the depth at some of the positions for the Kings. So that's why I have them 11th. Excuse me, folks, I had to take off my sweatshirt. I cut it out of the video, so you don't have to see that. Not sure if my heat's too high, but it is roasting in here. So I do want to note something before we get into number 10. This is kind of the point in the list, in my opinion, where you start to see some separation of the previous teams. And now we're getting into the territory where a team will either have a lot of depth at each position, and that ranks them higher than some of the other teams I've mentioned, or they have maybe a really good 6th and 7th man. So this is kind of the territory where the depth isn't perfect, but it's solid at a couple positions. And some of these teams are just kind of one position away from being a top tier bench, or they're really deep but don't have the top end talent. So that's kind of where we're at in the list. And at number 10, I have the Phoenix Suns. And this is a good example of what I just said. The Phoenix Suns have a great 6th and honestly 7th or 8th man, but they just don't have all positions covered. And in my opinion, the backup 5 is going to be an issue for Phoenix this season. We're looking at potential backup 5s of Mason Plumlee, Bol Bol, or the rookie who I actually like quite a bit, the 2nd round rookie, Oso Ighodaro. But this is a little bit of a lackluster backup 5 group. In my opinion, you need to get a reliable backup 5 instead of, maybe Bol Bol, maybe Mason Plumlee if they play really well early on. This is just not a great situation at the backup 5, in my opinion. You could use a little bit more of a defensive backup 5 on the Phoenix Suns as well. But when we're talking about the Suns, when you consider Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Monte Morris, Josh Okogie, and Ryan Dunn, who I think is going to get a lot of minutes this season, particularly for his defense, this is a great unit of guards and wings. I mean, this is no question. That is absolutely covered. You have maybe the best catch and shoot 3-point shooter in the entire league in Grayson Allen. He's going to make an excellent 6-man, one of the best in the league. And then Monte Morris is a good backup point guard. When we're talking about the wings and forwards, I mean, Royce O'Neal is a versatile player. He can play multiple positions and guard multiple positions. Honestly, a great utility piece there at the value you have him. I love Ryan Dunn's game. I think he's going to be one of the best perimeter defenders of the NBA within 5 to 10 years, as long as he can stay on the floor offensively and hit some threes every now and then and just not be a liability out there. This guy's a really good rebounder and such a versatile defender. He could be, an all NBA caliber guy, within a couple of years. And, Josh Okogie, certainly has some experience at, being in big moments. And so I like this bench group as far as the guards and wings. I think it's, one of the best for guards and wings. But the backup 5, there's just a hole there in my opinion. And I don't know if I would trust Mason Plumlee or Bol Bol to fill a backup 5 role consistently night to night, especially when you get into playoff situations. And so that's kind of my thing there for the Suns at 10. If they just had a backup 5, they'd be, arguably top 5 for me personally. At number 9, I have the Los Angeles Lakers. This is another team that just has a lot of good players off the bench. When we're talking about each position, I think probably the weakness will be the backup 5 once again. What you're looking at right now is going to be Jackson Hayes, Christian Koloko, and Christian Wood. And all 3 of these players, in a perfect world, could make an excellent backup 5. I just don't know if I trust any one of them right now to do that, again, on a night-to-night basis. We just have to see it before I can believe it. I actually like all 3 of these players, but I'm just saying, if I had to bet on any of these guys being a quality backup 5 consistently night to night, backing up Anthony Davis, I just don't know if I would. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But I will say on the wing and at guard, you are extremely deep. When we're talking about the Lakers guard depth, we have Gabe Vincent, Max Christie, and Jalen Hood-Schifino, and I expect Hood-Schifino to take a leap this year. At the wing and forward positions, you have Cam Reddish, Jared Vanderbilt, and Dalton Knecht. That's about as good as it gets for wings and forwards off the bench. I love this guard and wing group, but if they just had, kind of like the Suns, if they just had one reliable player I could trust night to night at backup 5, maybe it's Jackson Hayes. I just don't know. I would rank them so much higher. And so that's kind of where I'm at there for the Los Angeles Lakers at number 9. But at number 8, we have the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a team with 2 excellent players, as I mentioned in the intro, who will be returning from injury midway through the season, and that is G.G. Jackson and Vince Williams Jr. I love these 2 players. They're so young, so talented, and they're going to have great seasons once they come back from injury. Knock on wood for a speedy recovery for both of them. In the meantime, it looks like those roles are going to be filled by Jake LaRavia and John Conchar. You'd obviously much prefer Gigi and Vince, but you also have at guard, you're going to have Scottie Pippen Jr., who I think is going to make an excellent backup point guard in this league. He really showed a lot of promise last season when Ja Morant was injured. Towards the end of the season particularly, he played fantastic, super efficient. And then Luke Kennard, one of the best shooters in the league off the bench for this team. At the power forward, you're going to have Brandon Clark, one of the best backup 4s in the league. And then center Santi Aldama, who is a versatile offensive talent. This was a tough one for me to rank. I can't really find a particular glaring weakness in this team. This is where the teams start to get super well-rounded, but I like Brandon Clark at the 4. He's an exceptional, backup 4. I don't know if I love Santi Aldama as a backup 5. I personally really prefer rebounding and a defense at the backup 5. I see Santi Aldama as more of an offensive player, good offensive player, but he is an offensive player. I don't know. I'm struggling to find a lot of things wrong with this group, if I'm being honest with you guys, but I'm telling you, from the 8th spot where the Grizzlies are, in my opinion, from 7 to 1 is where you really start to see some fireworks here on the bench. I just don't know if the Grizzlies are going to meet that threshold with this group. Coming in at number 7, again, this is where the list gets crazy. I have, and before this fan base gets mad at me again, I have the Dallas Mavericks. Just keep an open mind, Mavericks fan. I promise you, I'm not being unfair to you guys. I don't know why you always think I am, all right? At the guards, you have Spencer Dinwiddie, Dante Exum, and Quentin Grimes, 3 serviceable players there. At forward, you have Najee Marshall, and at the center, Daniel Gafford. He is probably going to be the best backup 5 in this league. It's either him or maybe a couple other guys, but he is 100% up there in the top 3. And, when we look at the forwards here, Najee Marshall is going to make a big impact on this team defensively. I love the signing there. The reason why I don't have them higher is just, I guess I'd say Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I know a lot of Mavericks fans are excited about Spencer Dinwiddie, and I think he, in a perfect world, could add a lot of offense to this team off the bench as a 6-man type of scorer. He just has been so inefficient over the last couple seasons. He does not look like the same player that you had just a couple years ago. I don't know. I hope he gets it together. He's a talented offensive player. At his best, he is a really good 6-man type of scorer. I just don't know if he's so reliable. I'm not sure he's a player you can expect good efficiency from night to night anymore. I could be wrong, and I hope I am. I hope he, turns it around, but going off of the information I have, which is, last season and the season before that, it's going to be hard to keep him on the floor if you're trying to win games when he's shooting like that. If he is shooting like that. I really like Dante Exum as a wing or guard kind of hybrid. He's a good defender. He's revitalized his career. It's a great story, and I like the player defensively, and, he's a good 3-point shooter. Quentin Grimes, I think, has potential to be the 3-and-D wing of this team's second unit. And we're talking about Najee Marshall. He's your backup power forward, another great backup power forward. That's kind of the trend here in the Western Conference. And then at the backup center, Daniel Gafford, as I mentioned, he is kind of what elevates this group to me beyond like teams like the Grizzlies, beyond teams like the Lakers and the Suns. I can't stress enough how important it is to have a backup 5 that you can trust every single game to give you like starter caliber production in short bursts throughout a game, okay? Daniel Gafford is a starting caliber center. He's just not going to be starting for the Mavericks because of Derek Lively II. But, backup 5 is so crucial in today's NBA. And I don't know, man. And then you have Demarion Sharp, the 7'5" prospect that's coming in for the Mavericks. We'll have to see if he makes the team, but he is so intriguing. I saw some of his stuff in the Summer League and preseason. This could be an absolute freak at the 5 position. And Dwight Powell, like, I don't know. I think the backup 5 is just so locked down, steady for the Dallas Mavericks, and that's why I have them in the top 7. But as I mentioned, the guards could be a little bit shaky. I love Najee Marshall. I just think the guards are a little bit shaky. This is another team that their fan base is probably not going to like this when they just hear it out loud, all right? Coming in at number 6, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder. Let's remember, these are not rankings for the, entire season. These are just my opinion of the bench rankings. I think the Thunder are a potential finals team this season. That goes for the Mavericks as well. That goes for, maybe Phoenix if we see some things corrected from last season. Even the Lakers probably have a decent shot at it, right? In a perfect world. But that goes for Sacramento as well. Obviously, Denver being lower in the list. But listen, the Thunder, I love their bench, and it's actually one of the more complete groups in my opinion, and some of the top end talent on this bench is crazy. But when you hear some of these other teams' benches coming up, it's just going to blow you away. So the Thunder, their biggest strength is their guards and wings. I mean, when we're talking about the Thunder, they don't really need a great backup 5, but they do have a serviceable one. You basically have 2 5s that are going to be on the floor in the starting lineup with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein. Either one of them could play the 5 at any given time. You could stagger them throughout a game, but Jalen Williams is going to be the backup 5 for this team. I like his game. I think he's a, quality enough. He's certainly serviceable at the backup 5. He's not going to get the most minutes in the world, and that's probably going to be their strategy. So, he's not exactly Daniel Gafford, but he's not going to need to be for this team. As far as the guards, it's either going to be Lou Dort or Alex Caruso, whoever they decide to start. The other one will be coming off the bench. I predict it personally to be Lou Dort. I think he's going to be the bench player out of these two for the Thunder. And then obviously having Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace is a really good defender, and he's a steady backup point guard going into his second year. Maybe we'll see him take a leap. He was one of my favorite rookies last season. He does not try to do too much. He shoots efficiently, incredibly efficiently. For a rookie last year, he knows his role, and he just guards super well. You also have Isaiah Joe, an absolute sniper out there from 3. He's going to be coming off the bench. This is a deep rotation of guards and wings. Aaron Wiggins, a forward. He could play either forward position, I think, and so he's going to be getting some minutes there. They both, Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins, both signed extensions. rotations. They're going to be getting some of these big minutes here off this bench. And you have guys like AJ Mitchell. You have guys like Dylan Jones, Kenrick Williams. Like, these guys could be in the running for some minutes throughout the regular season. I don't know that any of those guys are going to be in playoff rotations, but this team has the top end talent. You know, they have the 6th man, the 7th man, the 8th man locked down. They have the 2 bigs in their starting lineup. They'll probably stagger throughout a game. There's a ton of defense. There's a ton of shooting in this second unit. I just love the second unit for the Thunder. And again, you're going to be hearing this and thinking, Dehave, really? You have them 6th overall? Like, how can you have that? Well, that's because at number 5, we have a team like the Pelicans. While they do have a hole at center, I'll give you that, in the starting lineup and in my opinion off the bench. Not to discredit Daniel Tice, because I think he's just fine at backup 5. The center position as a whole is not going to be good for the Pelicans. Now, the thing about the Pelicans that is so fascinating and so dominant is their wings, okay? You're going to potentially have Herb Jones and Trey Murphy III coming off of the bench. I mean, Herb Jones, if he comes off the bench for the entire year, this guy is, you know, maybe you could make a case will win 6th man of the year. One of the best defenders, period, in the entire league. He's a very exceptional shooter as well. He's turned into such an efficient offensive player, but his defense is next level. Now, Trey Murphy III, absolute sniper. These are the 2 best wings, arguably off the bench in this entire list, and they're both playing for the New Orleans Pelicans. And then, you know, obviously Jose Alvarado at the guard position. This is a fiery point of attack defender with a lot of competitive spirit. He's a decent 3-ball shooter as well. Just makes a lot of plays out there. Jordan Hawkins, I expect to take a leap in efficiency. This is a really great shooter. I expect him to see some minutes here. Daniel Tice at the backup 5. Listen, this is not ideal, but I don't think Daniel Tice is the worst backup 5 even on this list. I think he's, you know, fine. I think he did okay with the Clippers last year. I don't love it. When you have these 2 wings, it's just, it's so hard not to have them in the top 5. Let me tell you, folks. Let's just say for the sake of the video, this team had a quality, like, top tier backup 5 for this list. They'd be number 1. They probably would be for me. The wings are just that great. You also bring in Javonte Green and Jamal Cain on the wing and forward positions from the Bulls and Heat respectively. These are 2 playable forwards. Jeremiah Robinson Earl, another forward. Antonio Reeves out of the draft as a guard. Trey Jamison off of the bench at center behind Daniel Tice. Like, this team it's just so loaded, and so have the Pelicans at 5, you know, particularly because of those 2 wings. It's just too dominant. Coming in at number 4, if you asked me about 2 weeks ago where this team would rank in a bench unit rankings for the Western Conference, I'd probably say maybe towards the middle of the list. This team is now top 5 with the addition of one of their players in a big time trade, and that is the Minnesota Timberwolves. This team kind of just checks all the boxes as far as positions and like top end rotation players. You have 2 6th man of the year candidates on this team, and Naz Reid winning it last year. He might actually start some of these games here if Julius Randle isn't ready to go for the season, but he will be their 6th man again. Won 6th man of the year last season. I would expect him to have similar production. Probably the best backup 5 in the league. I would say Naz Reid could probably start for like 40% of NBA teams, maybe even 50 or 60 if you want to be generous. He's so good and so underrated. At the wing position, this is where you run into some issues. It's probably going to be guys like Joe Ingles, Terrence Shannon Jr. I think it's Josh Minot or Josh Minot. He is actually an up and coming player that I like. I watched a lot of his summer league. I think he's going to be a good player, but this is just not the best wing group that we've seen on this list. It's not great. I like Terrence Shannon Jr. I think Joe Ingles is a good shooter still. I just don't know if I love the wings, but at wing, you know, you could play this guy at wing. He's probably going to be a guard, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker, this is one of the best bench defenders that we've seen so far. This guy, you know, easily could be starting. Dante DiVincenzo is going to be a 6th man of the year candidate. You know, no question. This is an elite sniper in this league from outside. Rob Dillingham is going to make a great backup ball handler. He's an exceptional perimeter shot creator with good playmaking upside. If he commits to the defensive end of the floor, I think he could be okay at, you know, creating turnovers and deflections. This team is just so loaded at guard and center. You also have Luka Garza at center. Guys like Leonard Miller could be in the mix at forward. Like, there's just so much to like about this group, particularly from the guard and center position. You have like 2 or 3 6th man of the year candidates. I don't know how else to say it. This is a top tier bench in this league, and Dante DiVincenzo, you know, just makes them so much better. I can't even tell you where this team would rank before the Cat trade. I'd probably have them like in the bottom half of the list. Honestly, he just really moves the needle for me on this bench. Now, obviously Naz Reid would have made them really good already, and Rob Dillingham, but Nickeil Alexander-Walker. But I mean, come on, man, this is just so easy as a top 5 team for their bench. Now we have 3 teams here with a ton of talent at basically all positions, and they have a lot of, you know, really good pop at 6th man. And, you know, at number 3, I'm going to be talking about one of them. That is the Los Angeles Clippers, and this is a great bench unit. This team has like 6 guards that could see minutes in a rotation on some other team. Obviously, they're not all going to see minutes on the Clippers because there's just too many of them. But when we're talking about guards for the Clippers off of the bench, Kevin Porter Jr., again, I don't think people are going to realize how good this guy still is and is going to be for the Clippers this year. This, in my opinion, is a talented two-way player that, regardless what you think of him off the court, we're not here to talk about that on this channel or on this video. That's not what we do. We keep it strictly basketball, and strictly basketball speaking, Kevin Porter Jr. is going to reemerge as an incredibly high upside, high impact, two-way versatile guard in the NBA. I mean, he's going to be one of the leading scorers on this team, within the top 4 or 5, no doubt. The other one that's going to be in the top 4, he could even be the third leading scorer, is Norman Powell. I don't think people understand how efficient of a scorer Norman Powell is. He's been so efficient over the last couple of years, particularly for the Clippers. This is one of your more consistent players last year. Norman Powell's just such an unsung hero. Chris Dunn is going to have such a good impact as a point of attack defender and playmaker. I love his defense. He's going to add a lot of toughness to this backcourt. And then you have guys like Jordan Miller, who could be in the mix as well, who had a fantastic summer league. He looked like an absolute nightmare out there to guard. And he was actually, I believe, on the all summer league first team. So like, this guy obviously clearly has a ton of offensive upside. And Bones Highland, another guy that could, maybe find a role in a different team. And Cam Christie, the guy you brought in from the second round this season. So brother of Max Christie, of course, on the Lakers. And so the guard group it's unmatched as far as this conference goes. There are no teams with this amount of playable guards, in my opinion. Every player in it, maybe a different circumstance, could see a role on a different team. There's probably going to be about 2 or 3 of these guys that get a role. It's probably going to be Kevin Porter Jr., Norman Powell, and Chris Dunn. These guys are going to get a big role. But Norman Powell, you could play at the wing. You could probably play him at the 3 and get away with it. Chris Dunn is going to be, maybe your backup point guard. You could play Kevin Porter Jr. at the 2 because he's a long defender and a, good shooter. This guy's just going to be a great bucket getter. And then at the forwards, you're a lot better than people seem to think. I mean, let's not forget the Clippers brought over Nico Batum from the Sixers, who is one of the most underrated players as far as role players go in this league, in my opinion. I watched every game he played for the Sixers and went over it with a fine-tooth comb like I do for all the Sixers games. I'm telling you guys, he is as steady as it goes at the forward. He is a great shooter. He is maybe the fastest release on his jump shot of anybody in the league. Quick trigger 3 shooter, just an absolute sniper out there on those catch and shoots. And he plays excellent versatile defense. I don't care how old he is. He's a smart player as well. Good basketball IQ. This is a guy you could play for 20 to 30 minutes a game and expect steady results on both ends as far as the things I just mentioned. And Amir Coffey, another wing who had a good season last year. He's a good shooter and a good defender. I like his effort. And then you have guys like Kobe Brown, who could be, maybe getting an increased role this season. I like his potential in the league. And then PJ Tucker, I doubt will see the floor very much, but he is on this team. I can say that. And then at the center position, we haven't talked about that yet. Kai Jones and Mo Bamba. A lot of people are really high on Kai Jones in the Clippers fan base, as I've seen on the comment sections. On any video where I talk about the Clippers, people always talk about Kai Jones, how he's going to be a really good contributor to the Clippers. Listen, I wasn't aware. As far as I knew, Kai Jones, he had a limited role in Charlotte, was cut for reasons we're not going to get into. I know he has a great athletic profile. I know he's a kind of a freak athlete with some intriguing raw talent and skills on the floor for his size, but this is a guy that was picked up by my Sixers and, cut, never played a game for us. And then I guess he made his way to the Clippers, and people really like him this summer and are saying he's going to have a big role in this team. He could be the backup 5. I don't know. I'd be interested to see, hopefully we could see some steady production from Kai Jones. Hopefully can revitalize the narrative around him and his career. And I really hope to see that for this guy. I'm really rooting for him. And Clippers fans, let me know down in the comment section, how are we feeling about Kai Jones being our backup 5? Do we think he could be a consistent player when you look at his career so far? Do you think you just have to give him the opportunity? Please let me know. And then Mo Bamba, you bring in from my Sixers as well. Good floor spacer from 3. So this unit is pretty solid altogether. You could say backup 5 if you're not a Kai Jones believer. You could say maybe that's the weakness, but either way, the guard position is just so stacked. I had to put them top 3. They're so versatile at guard, wing, and forward. Now, coming in at number 2, this is a team that this is really, the strength of this team, as well as the Clippers and the number 1 team. But we talk about the Golden State Warriors and all of the additions they've made for role players this summer. Listen, the Warriors and the team I have at number 1 are the only 2 teams in this conference with really good 6th and 7th men, and also having exceptional, rotation caliber players at every single position. And I mean every position, all right? You're either going to have, if you're the Warriors, Brandon Podziemski or DeAnthony Melton off the bench, probably your secondary guard. I like the sound of either of those guys being in a potential first guard off the bench type of role, because DeAnthony Melton, another guy I've watched extensively for my Sixers. I'm telling you, Warriors fans are they're in for a real treat. This guy is such a good perimeter defender and competitor. He is going to make a ton of catch and shoot threes at a well above league average rate, around 40%. He's a very smart player. He seems to make a lot of good decisions on both ends of the floor. He's reliable night to night. He's coming off a back injury, so hopefully that doesn't hamper him. But DeAnthony Melton is such a good complementary guard in this league. It's unquestioned his two-way versatility. And then Brandon Podziemski, who I think will be the 6th man, another 6th man of the year candidate. I expect Brandon Podziemski to be a breakout candidate this season and be one of the best players for the Warriors Warriors, period. This guy is a good three-point shooter. He's a great ball handler. He has an exceptionally high basketball IQ in my opinion, and I think he is one of the better rebounding guards in the league. I think he has defensive upside as well, but I just think his overall game and his seamlessness offensively to, basically fit in any role you want to put him in. He's just a great basketball player, and he's going to be one of the best players on the Warriors for years to come, in my opinion. You also have Buddy Hield off of the bench, most likely at the 2 guard position, and maybe you could put him at the 3 in a small ball lineup. This is one of the best shooters in NBA history. No explanation needed. Moses Moody is someone I love his game. I love these sturdy defensive 3-and-D wing guys or guard guys that just come in, play good defense, disrupt ball handlers, get in passing lanes, make deflections, make it tough on these offensive players, and can fit in nicely, make a couple threes here and there at good efficiency on the other end, and make the right play when the ball is given to them. Moses Moody fits the bill here. I love his game. Such a good role player for the wing. You bring in Kyle Anderson, who is going to be your backup power forward most likely. Listen, this guy's just a smart basketball player. They love their smart, high IQ offensive basketball players in Golden State, and he just fits the bill perfectly. This is one of the best passing and playmaking forwards in the league. I think he has two-way upside as well. While he might not be the best three-point shooter, they can use him in a lot of other ways, but the way he sees the floor and his basketball IQ, this is a good substitution. Anytime you take Draymond Green off the floor, you put Kyle Anderson in, I think you will be in good hands. Now, Gary Payton II, another versatile defender who can play a lot of different positions. This is a guy I like on defense a ton. And then at the center position, you are perfectly loaded at center. You have Trace Jackson Davis, who I think is another guy that's going to take a leap this season. This is a smart player, good playmaker for the position. He is a great finisher around the rim, good rebounder, gives a lot of effort as well on defense, good shot blocker. I think this guy is going to be your backup 5. And then Kevon Looney, a guy that's just a rebounding machine who fits this system so nicely throughout his career. This is like your third string center. I mean, what are we talking about here? This guy, hopefully we'll see some minutes at least, but depending on the matchups, maybe Coach Kerr will flip him around. TJD, Kevon Looney, and Draymond Green at the 5 position, but either way you slice it, this team is loaded at every position. And with guys like Brandon Pajemski, Buddy Hield, D'Anthony Melton, Moses Moody leading the charge, like this is just such a great unit. One of the deepest teams in the league. That is the strength of this Warriors squad. Strength in numbers, and they are no question for me in the top 3. And honestly, I think they're just a little bit behind the first best team, who we'll get into in a second, but I actually struggled whether or not to rank the Warriors first, because that's just so many good players at every position. It's hard not to. And at the number 1 spot for the best bench in the entire Western Conference in 2025, you can probably guess who that is by counting all the teams and guessing which one isn't in there, and that is the Houston Rockets. This is the only other team other than maybe the Clippers and definitely the Warriors that are absolutely stacked at every single bench position, and it's not even funny. I mean, some of these players are starting caliber, no question. The top end talent is crazy, and when you consider how stable the 5 position is going to be for them off the bench, it honestly is the best bench in the Western Conference. There's no question to me. And the Rockets are going to be having Reed Shepherd off the bench, who I think is probably going to be a favorite for Rookie of the Year. This guy is so special and so talented offensively. He just has an effortless kind of game to him, and he's going to translate it day 1 to the NBA. This is probably the most translatable NBA skill set out of this year's draft to the NBA. He's going to have, I would say, the least amount of struggle from day 1 to day 82 this season as a rookie than anyone in this draft class. And he's going to put up extremely efficient production offensively, whether it's shooting, whether it's playmaking, whether it's scoring in general. He's going to be so fantastic in this regard. You also have a ton of guys looking to make their mark on this team and take a massive leap, including Amen Thompson, who didn't even play a full season last year. Obviously a top lottery pick last season, versatile two-way player, exceptional playmaker. We'll have to see if he can knock down a consistent 3 ball, but this is an exceptionally talented and versatile two-way player that honestly could play any position from like 1 through 4 in my opinion. So we'll have to see how Coach Udoka utilizes Amen, but this guy's a problem out there on defense, no question. And then Aaron Holiday, who's kind of a veteran 3-and-D guy. But for the forwards, I mean, you're stacked. You have Cam Whitmore, who's going to be a wing player for this team. He's another exceptional scorer and athlete, just a dynamic type of scorer for this team, particularly shooting the basketball. Expect a jump in scoring production from this guy as well. I do think he has, some defensive capabilities. Talk about defense. How about Tari Eason? Maybe the best defender on this entire team. You could maybe say Jabari Smith Jr. in the starting 5, but you could maybe say Dylan Brooks. I'd probably say it's Tari Eason, potentially having the highest upside defensively, probably going to be your backup power forward. Listen, this guy's a great rebounder too. Not a lot of people talk about Tari's rebounding. It is exceptional. He also has a little bit of offense to him as well. These are 4 players right here between Reed Shepherd, Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, and Tari Eason that, honestly, all of them combined could make a starting 4 and realistically have some good competition against against some of these teams in the league, and then 3 of them are just so versatile. You could play Amen Thompson and Tari Eason at multiple positions. Amen Thompson, like I said, could play 1 through 4, and then you also have Jayshawn Tate as a forward, another playable forward, and then Steven Adams at the backup 5, another great backup 5 who just adds a lot of physicality, rebounding, offensive rebounding, just a total glass cleaner, good finisher. Coming off that injury, obviously he's a little bit older in his career now, but this is a great backup 5, no question. This is a good starting 5. Like, I don't care what anyone says, this is the best bench in the Western Conference. And they have Jock Lawndale at the backup 3rd string 5 for this bench unit, another playable player. Like, this team is so loaded off the bench, and they're like 4 or 5 players in this rotation that could see legitimate minutes, like in winning situations. These are winning type of players with a ton to prove, and most of them will be taking big leaps next season. So if you're looking at their stats and thinking these guys aren't that great, look at the stats by the end of the season, and that will tell you how much better they are from last season. That's more of an indicator of how great this unit's going to be. Led by Reed Shepard, Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore. Amen Thompson's going to have a lot to prove, and Steven Adams, a rock solid backup 5. This is the best bench unit in the league in my opinion. The only other team that I think has a case for it is the Warriors. I think the Clippers are clear number 3, but either way, I love this bench unit. Clearly the best in the Western Conference in my opinion. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. That's going to really wrap it up. This was a longer type of video. Sorry I did so much explaining at the beginning of the video. I know there are going to be so many people that disagree with all of the stuff I said in this video. Feel free to let me know all of those disagreements in the comments. Just don't be disrespectful about it. Don't call people names. Keep it strictly basketball like we do in these videos, and you'll be able to say whatever you want in the comments. Whether you think my takes are ridiculous, that's fine. Just talk about the takes. Don't, call me names. Don't call other people names. It's just not productive. We're not going to do that in this comment section. And if you're going to be childish and call people names, then, you will get treated like a child and have a timeout in the comment section. Hopefully guys have a great rest of your day today. Obviously this is part 3 of the series. Part 4 will be doing this same thing for the Eastern Conference benches. This was a tough video to put together. I had a lot of trouble ranking these benches. There's so many great benches in the Western Conference, and honestly the criteria was the difficult part of it, because I could see a case that you could say, teams with a great 6-man are, maybe a little bit more high upside or better than teams that are like deep at every position but might not have like a standout player on the bench. I personally lean more towards like depth at every position, but 6-men for the Sacramento Kings, for example, I could see how a team might have them higher than some of the other teams. I could see how people would think the Utah Jazz should be higher. I could see how people would think the Mavericks should be higher, or the Thunder, or even the Pelicans, with these 2 incredible wings. I don't know, I just personally think you're only as strong as your weakest link on the basketball floor at any given time. That includes the bench. It's not necessarily when it comes to playoff time that way, because you can really just play your starters a ton of minutes, and a lot of teams only run like an 8 or 7-man rotation when it gets to crunch time. Some of these teams like the Rockets and the Warriors, they're going to be able to run 9-man rotations and feel totally okay about it, because they have all of the depth and versatile pieces required at every single position, and that's what stands out to me at having a great second unit. So if you disagree with the list, that's fine. Please let me know. You could be critical. I actually improve from hearing criticism, because I do take it all into consideration. We don't all have to agree with each other. That's not what this is about. It's not about me being right or being smart or anything like that. This is just my passion. I just love talking about basketball and coming up with these videos. Who do you think has the best bench in the Western Conference? Did I get it right with the Rockets, or do you think it's someone else? Let me know. Let me know who it is and why. And if you guys did enjoy the video, make sure you guys leave a like. And as I mentioned, this is a 3-part series. Part 4 will be the Eastern Conference bench. The other videos ranking these starting 5s, you guys seem to really enjoy those. So I'll probably be doing like a lot more conference ranking stuff throughout the season, because this is a lot of fun for me to rank this stuff, and you guys seem to enjoy it. So if you guys do want to check out those starting 5 rankings, the links will be down in the description to part 1 and part 2 of this series. And if you guys want to stay tuned for part 4, you're curious about the East rankings and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. We're on the road to 15K. Thank you for all of the new subs, old subs, and just people watching this in general. If you made it all the way to the end, I really appreciate you. I'm sure you love the NBA like I do, and the season's just around the corner, so make sure you stay tuned with all of the channel videos, comings and goings, all that stuff, because we're going to be uploading either every day or very close to every day NBA content just like this. I really pour everything I have into this channel, and I know you guys love basketball just as much as I do. I don't want you guys to miss any content, so please subscribe. Follow my Twitter, follow my Twitch. Those are my social medias. Links are down in the description. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic rest of your day today, and hopefully your favorite team didn't get a bad ranking, and if they did, I apologize. I will catch you guys in part 4 of this series, probably tomorrow or the next day, and I will see you guys then. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. This is your boy D-Haven. As always, peace.